listening to this broadcast. You're a part of the resistance.
Good morning, Resistance Broadcast listeners. We are here with another glorious episode for your ears or your eyes if you're watching on YouTube. John Hoey is actually out this week, so I, James Bainey, am going to be doing the hosting this glorious Monday, this glorious Thursday upcoming episode. So please be nice to us in the comments. We are 10 days away from Solo, a Star Wars story, and we have new clips coming left and right and center. It's all over the place. I, for one, am loving them. Spoiler alert. But this is not a one-man podcast, or, well, actually, maybe it is. But the other person I'm joined with this morning is Lacey Gillerin. Lacey, how have you been?
I'm good. You know, it's really weird not hearing John do the welcome back to the Resistance broadcast. No, you know, I miss John, but it's going to be a good show. I'm really excited. I'm pumped for Solo. You know, I wish I was at the premiere. I'm not going to lie. I was pretty jealous of everybody that went, but it looked like a really good time, and hopefully I'll make the next one. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, as of recording, we just we sat and watched the premiere together, me and Lacey. And we commented on it totally nerded out. We saw George Lucas. Can you believe it?
Wearing plaid. My boy George, always coming through.
We definitely had a good time, and all the interviews were great, and we think they did a really good job with it. But like I said, it's just the two of us tonight, but we can make it if we try. However,
we'll see.
Before we get to the main stories tonight in the Newsnet, we do have a couple of polls. I'm actually going to let Lacey take over the polls tonight. Lacey, what was the results of the polls this week?
Yeah, so it's poll time. We're a little over 10 days or so when Solo opens, but let's have some fun in the meantime. And we asked you guys, who is Enfys Nest? The results are 7% said Val, which I hate all of you because I really think it's Val. 15% said someone else, which could be, in the comments, you guys said Jackson, Sanastaros, Han's mom.
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting.
I don't know if that's serious or like that's like a your mom joke, but either way, I appreciate it. Snoke, because why not throw Snoke in there? And everyone's favorite character to hate, Jar Jar.
Yeah, Jar Jar's the why not throw Jar Jar in there.
Why not throw Jar Jar? Why not? And then we have 23% Kira, and then 55% Enfys Nest, which I'm assuming is people just think it's its own character.
Yes.
We have a best comment, which came from Evan at Harris Eve 9. And they said, I'm hoping she's a new character who has a great presence in the film. That way we could get a cool new comic about her and the Cloud Riders in the future, perhaps. That'd be awesome. And I couldn't agree more. What do you think, James?
Yeah. For the longest time, I've been saying that I think that Enfys Nest, is just Enfys Nest. The same as, there's no reveals. They're not trying to like do anything crazy. I just think this character's new. When I get into the speculative territory, I do think I do think that it could be Val. That's a good option. You've presented that. You actually, to be honest with you, you were the first person I heard say that, and I thought, I don't know, that just sounds like a guess. But the closer we're getting to the movie, man, I'm starting to think it might be Val. I also threw in there
when
too.
They showed her talking, him talking. Sounds a lot like Thandie. I watch a lot of Westworld. So
I probably would be someone who would have went in the someone else category, and I wouldn't have put Han's mom, but I might have put Beckett's wife, and I've gone on record of saying that, and that, that could add that little dynamic of, and Val would do the same thing too. So adding that little bit of dynamic between like, oh, I don't know, am I supposed to hurt this person or not? You know what I mean? I think that makes it interesting. What do you think of the results here?
I I'm not surprised that people just said, it's its own character. And I don't blame people for saying that because you want it to be something new and just like its own thing. I really think it's Val, guys. I've been saying that for a while now. I know Jen and I brought this up a couple weeks ago, but I stand by that. And if I'm right, man, I'm going to rub that in everyone's face for at least a couple weeks. It's going to be like shirtless Kylo Ren times 5. Like, I'm going to be like, I told you, until it gets old. But overall, I think this was really fun. I love when we do polls. I really do. I think you guys come up with really, really good answers. So if you want to be a part of our poll and perhaps get a shout out, pay attention to our Twitter account, RB@SWNN on Twitter, and we'll post a poll there. But I think it's time we get into the news. What do you think, James?
Oh, we have lots of news to talk about this week. This whole Solo craze started this week with a clip of Han, Kira, and Chewbacca all on the Falcon, with Chewie taking over as co-pilot and Han looking at him as if to say he kind of was enjoying the idea of having a Wookiee as a co-pilot. Shortly after, we got confirmation from John Powell that the music used in the scene was actually the first official theme for Chewbacca himself. Now, after all that, we were hit with Han meeting Lando on Mimban as a clip. We got Chewie and Beckett playing holo chess, Han and Lando meeting each other at the sabacc table, and we got the gang coming face to face with Enfys Nest herself. These were all full clips, and they were all over the place. We got to see a lot of them. Lacey, you told us last week that you like to absorb everything about a movie before it comes out. So I take it you've seen these clips.
I've seen every clip multiple times. And by multiple, I mean like a lot. Probably more embarrassed than anything about how many times I've watched these clips.
What was your favorite one?
So I loved the one where you got to finally see how Lando calls him Han. Like, that to me was just so fun. And it was like one of those moments that, like, we talked about fan service a couple weeks ago, and I feel like that's like an example of really good fan service. Like, really good, like, you guys love this about Lando, well, we're going to explain why he does that. But then I really liked that we got to see or hear Enfys Nest talk. And again, guys, if you watch Westworld, it sounds a lot like Dandy. What'd you think, James?
To me, when I saw that clip, that was I loved the Han and Lando, Han, I can't say it now because I'm getting ready to say the name differently. Han and Lando clip where Lando calls Han. That's such a weird way to say that, but I loved that because you're right, it did give that new dynamic of like, so that's why he does that. It's almost kind of a little mockery, kind of getting at him, getting under his skin a little bit, to kind of purposely call him by the wrong name, even though he knows what to say. And it just kind of stuck, I guess. The clip to me that I found the most interesting was I was watching that latest one of them meeting Enfys Nest and hearing the voice. I literally like stopped. I was like, oh. Like, I was like, oh, that's the voice. We were hearing a voice. This is really good. And I'm listening to the whole thing. And then the rest of it, I was like, actually, like, literally laughing out loud at some of the stuff that Han was doing, his dynamic with when he's faced against this villain, he's not afraid of her, and Tobias kind of standing there next to him like, do I let him take the reins here? Like, this is just such an awkward thing. And then to see the Falcon like fly away, I actually started laughing out loud. And I was just like, this is hilarious. And that's the vibe I got with a lot of the clips. I loved Chewie. I felt like Chewie, but he felt like he wasn't getting sidelined, kind of like he was in Last Jedi. The humor, I think, just is great. I think it's original trilogy humor. And not to say that the humor was bad in Last Jedi or other things like that, but I think just something about this, like the music, for instance, they were using the asteroid field music, that just takes you right back to that scene. What did you think of Chewbacca's theme?
I mean, I think all of the music is really great. And, it's really hard for anybody to follow in John Williams' steps, you know? I think automatically people are going to say, like, we had this conversation the other day, James, about
Yes.
Rogue One, that I think it just needs to be appreciated on its own. And I think people need to take a step back. But I loved it.
John can do a very good job, and we all know that. And it's just, it kind of is one of those things that's unfortunate when no matter what, if John Powell comes along and creates something really awesome, it's almost difficult to actually try to say that it's as good or better than something John Williams has done.
It's like when
because
people
we
say,
always
this
compare
movie is The Empire Strikes Back of blank. You're like, okay, guys, can we not use that comparison?
We're always comparing this one thing that John Powell just did or Giacchino just did to a lifetime of successful John Williams songs. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How can Giacchino in one Rogue One soundtrack, how can John Powell in one solo soundtrack beat Jaws and Harry Potter and Indiana Jones and Star Wars, the original? I mean, like, that's impossible, you know? So, but I think it's on equal grounds. It's just hard to say that it's better than, you know what I mean? I think that's where the fans are coming from. I was going to ask you one other thing. How are you feeling the more and more we're getting these clips? How are you feeling about Alden?
You know what? I'm one of the people from day one. I loved him. So I don't know if I'm the right person to ask for this question, only because I was there when they introduced him.
Well, you're the only one I can ask right now.
Fair enough. Okay, well played. No, I was in the room when they introduced him on stage at Celebration. So I was there when they were like, this is the guy we chose. And from that moment he walked out on stage, maybe I do this falsely and I'll accept this if people don't agree with me, but like, I blindly agree with anything Lucasfilm decides to do. I don't care. Mm-hmm. They could be like, Lacey, you need to jump off this bridge. I'd be like, okay, so like, how hard do you want me to jump off? Or like, how high do you want me to jump? I love everything they do, and I don't think they do any wrong, and I trust every judgment that they make. So when they decided to pick him, there's a reason they chose him, and I think I stood by him from day one. I don't even know him. Alden, I stand by you from day one.
My original pick when I was hearing the rumored, like, who could be Han Solo was Taron Egerton. I thought he would be the best choice. A lot of people liked Ansel Elgort or whatever his name is from Baby Driver. Mm-hmm. And I mean that could have worked too. They all kind of feel a little bit the same, and it's funny because I don't really think that any of them really feel like Harrison, but they all kind of feel similar to each other to a degree. Mm-hmm. But I will say that when I finally got a good glimpse at what Alden was capable of, I do think that he was nailing it. And the longer we go, the closer we get to the film, the more we see him in these TV spots and trailers and clips, full clips. I'm just like 100% sold. Not even that, not even his acting. Even the images that we're getting from like Topps cards and stuff. Mm-hmm. I just see it and I'm like,
I love the pointing. He's very good at the pointing.
Yeah, that's freaking Han Solo. Yeah. Like one of my favorite lines from one of these ones we haven't they didn't actually show it in the clip, but it was in a trailer, but it's the clip of him meeting Beckett and Val for the first time. We know that in that scene he says, you know, I'm a driver and a pilot. He's trying to convince him, and then he comes back at him and he's like, a great pilot. Yeah. And that line to me is so 100% Solo that I just get so pumped for this movie.
Are you kidding? There's a scene with Enfys Nest where he's like, I got a bunch of people over here, and then the ship flies away and he's like, let me just take a step back. Like, yeah. That is so Han. Yeah. And right before then, he's like, we got I think he says like, we got a problem or something. And he's, a big problem. And then like, he looks at him and he like kind of gives him this like wink, like, I got this. Yeah. Yep. We're on the same team. We're working together here. Yeah. I love it. So the clips have been awesome. I think we're all set. We're going into this movie. And no more clips, pumped. Disney. Please don't release any more clips.
Yeah, I know. Because if you do, we're probably going to end up having to talk about them on the show.
Not even that. I'm going to watch them. So stop.
Yeah, I know. All right. Well, speaking of Solo, it has received its opening weekend estimations. Now, movie tracking is an ever-changing art. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they are well off. But I do believe that most times, if they are wrong, they usually are under the estimations. So the latest reports have Solo coming in at over 170 million over the 4-day weekend. Now that likely gives an actual opening box office 3-day weekend of somewhere around the range of like 120 or so. But I will admit that number is far higher than I expected it to be. I would have never guessed that high. Now that the tickets are available, Solo is also the second highest in pre-order tickets of 2018, which is pretty awesome. Lacey, tell us
Marvel,
about when
behind Avengers.
Yeah, I believe so, behind Infinity War, because I think that was crazy. It might be Black Panther, but I think it was Infinity War.
No, I think it surpassed Black Panther. Black Panther's 3.
I agree. What was the experience like when we were all on at midnight trying to get our tickets for this? And what do you think the box office is actually going to be?
Oh my God, I knew you were going to bring this up. So embarrassingly, like, I have a lot of anxiety about buying tickets for anything. When Celebration gets announced, I'm sure I'll be in the same position. I did it for Last Jedi. Well, actually, I didn't because my friend bought them for me, so I didn't have to. But, I mean, I get really nervous because sites go down and then you can't see it when you want to see it, and then someone spoils it for you, and it's like this whole mind trip. So yeah, I was on with John and James buying tickets. So they got to see it firsthand. Me refreshing like crazy, being like, it's 12:03 and they're not online. So yeah, John and I actually, funny story, we live pretty close to each other. So, John and I are going to go see it together for this fan event on the Thursday, which I'm pumped because you get free dice, which we all joked about this the other day with Black Series Rebels. Like, that'd be
you just had to pay $20 more to get them.
Yep. The Black Series Rebels like, watch, you're going to buy the dice. And I was like, oh, I'll buy them in a second. And I did. And then I'm going to see it actually solo. I'm going to go see Solo Saturday morning. And then I'm seeing it again at lunchtime on Saturday, which I found out that my job, which was the reason I wasn't seeing it Friday, now is ending at noon. So I'm probably going to also see it on Friday.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no clue. I have a 7-month-old. So sometimes my movie going abilities kind of get squandered a little bit.
I have no children, so I only have myself.
I have a plan to go see it on Thursday night. Friday night, we are going to be doing some podcasting, preparing, getting our immediate reaction.
Yeah,
so get excited for that.
I'll be there.
Saturday or Sunday, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but I know for a fact that I have already negotiated with my wife that I at least have to see it 2 times in the theater. So I'm going to try to get that done. As far as the actual box office, though, 170 million over 4 days. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I totally skipped that question. I apologize. My anxiety came back. I think it's easily gonna beat that. I think they're already tracking, I think, ahead just on the first few days that it's coming out. And you have to remember, you have a lot of fans, whether I agree with them or not, that came out of Last Jedi with a bad taste in their mouth, so to speak, that didn't enjoy it. So
I don't know. I think most people, no, I'm just kidding.
I loved it. Dude, I saw it 6 or 7 times. I love that movie. I will fight anybody that says differently. But a lot of people didn't. And I can't say I respect them because I just said I'd fight them. But they didn't like it. They have bad taste in their mouth. So they want to go back to what they love. And what they love is Han. And Han's now dead. Spoiler alert. So they're probably buying mad tickets to this movie. And I don't blame them. Like, you have people that don't know anything about Star Wars that just want to see what they grew up with. And that's what this is. And I mean, we just watched the premiere. And the premiere, you had Ron Howard saying, look, it's going to be a movie that will bring you back to when you were a kid. That's what they want out of this movie. And I think a lot of people just want to have a good time at the movies. Real life is depressing enough. Let's just go have a good time.
And that's who they invited to the premiere. I mean, they invited fans, they invited children, they invited a lot of people.
There were a lot of kids on the red carpet.
Yeah, there were.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was also going to throw in too, Ken Knapsack from Force Center Pod was on Jedi Council, and that is a smart man. He actually has with Ash this week. Yeah. He loves Last Jedi, and he's got it at his number 2, but I think he is nailing what I've been saying. He's saying the same thing, that people came out of Last Jedi with very high expectations and maybe not didn't like it very much or whatever.
I think that's just a general thing. People tend to go in with such high expectations, they come out not getting what they wanted.
And here's my thing, though. I actually think people are going into Solo with low expectations. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but he was backing me up this week saying, I think people are going to go in after Last Jedi and be like, whatever, all right. It's going to another one of these Disney Star Wars movies. Yeah. They're going to go in and they're going to be blown away. Like, I think they're just going to have so much fun and they're going to be pleasantly surprised. They're going to come out saying, I wasn't asking for it, but I'm glad they brought it because this was the Star Wars movie that I've been waiting to see under the Disney regime. You know?
Which is funny because we've had this conversation a couple times on this podcast where you guys have been like, what do you think, Lacey? And I'm like, look, I'll watch anything Star Wars. But at the same time, like, I didn't ask for this movie. If you asked me for a character movie, I would be like, Kenobi. But
no, see, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I definitely, I don't get why people weren't asking for the Solo movie. Because what do you love about Star Wars? We love smuggling, swashbuckling,
Kylo Ren.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No, you say all those things, but like we love blasters, and bounty hunters, and being on an adventure.
Wranglers.
Like you're saying things that specifically aren't. They're not even like Rey isn't going to be in the Kenobi one movie. I called him Kenobi one.
No, what do
you're
I
saying
like about
things
Star Wars?
like
I like the idea of hope and the good guys winning, and you know what? Now that I don't want you to win.
Get out of here! It's blasters, bounty hunters, tight pilots like flying, like getting through the corners and just barely making
Mine's humor. Like, I love the humor of it.
Anyway, I think people don't even, this is kind of one of those things like, don't give them what they're asking for, give them what they really want, kind of a thing.
Dude, if you did a movie based on fan shit, the movie would be terrible.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about our last story here. We talked a little bit about John Powell earlier, but he did something else this week that is of great interest to fans hoping to gather as much information as they can about the film before the release. On his social media, the composer released the official track listing for the soundtrack of the film. While nothing on this track list is an obvious spoiler, I have personally decided to not look at it simply because of the track order, which then would allow me to see the layout of the events that are going to happen. The only reason I know that too, just so you know, like it's not like a don't knock it till you try it thing. I did kind of glance at it and I saw at one point it kind of laid out, that this was happening on this planet early in the movie, and then
the order of the
scenes and stuff. And I was just like, I looked away. I'm like, I don't want to know when these things take place. So, but if you read the tracks to me in a random order, I'd be like, okay, yep. All right. Han and Chewie flying. Yeah. Okay. Because like I said, I don't think any of the tracks give away anything spoilery. Like it's not like Dryden Boss dies or something. You know what I mean? Nothing like that. You think they do give stuff away just if you read the titles alone? Then don't read that title to me. Don't read that on the air. But that's not the consensus I'm hearing from most people. You feel that way? How did you feel after? Do you wish you hadn't? No.
You're talking to the girl that reads like
I know
9 leaks, and I use that term loosely, which I love that they always start, by the way, with I used to work at Lucasfilm and
yeah.
And you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. No. I mean, did it tell anything? Not really, but like, I mean, it gives you hints. It's not like telling you the plot, but there's definitely some titles in there that you're like, oh, a word?
Now, okay, so you don't have a problem necessarily with reading it, but do you think John should have released that information?
It's funny you say that because for The Last Jedi, I know they didn't release the tracks until the movie came out. Like legit the day, like the full day, not even the Thursday night. It was like the full Friday.
They just didn't release the tracks until the soundtrack was out. And the soundtrack came out the same day the movie did.
So the only reason those got released is because some jackal, it's always some guy at Target, in a back box, like opened it up and took a picture of it.
Oh, you're saying the Star Wars The Last Jedi stuff got leaked? a while before?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know officially it wasn't released until the movie was out.
Right. The track list was blank. Yeah, absolutely. And in iTunes too. But yeah, no, someone leaked it. Like, there's always someone. So it's funny that they didn't do that with this. I mean, I would assume it's because they're thinking, these people already know where this is going to go. Whereas Last Jedi, no one knew where it was going to go. I mean, at this point, Ep 9, no one knows where it's going to go. People have some idea, but like, you really don't know. So I don't think it's a big deal, but I get why people are like, oh, I shouldn't have looked at that.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. So I wish I could actually comment a little bit more. I think I would have rather he not released this information, although I do kind of like the look where they have the, Millennium Falcon flying over the planet and stuff. That looked kind of cool. The artwork was really neat, but I just kind of, looked through the image when it comes to the text on the left side there. Yeah, I was just like, I'm not really interested in this. Man, I feel like that's all the main stories this week, all the big events that were happening other than the premiere itself. But there were a couple other things that happened that were a little bit smaller, but we do want to touch on them. I'm going to send it over to Lacey for the Scoundrels rundown.
I'm the captain now.
I love it.
This week in the Scoundrels rundown, we've got roars heard around the world, a new book series hitting the galaxy. So let's get on board.
Punch it, Chewie. Let's do this.
It's been over 2 weeks since Lucasfilm has announced a Roar for Change, a new charity program encouraging fans around the world to share their best Chewbacca roar across social media platforms. For every post, like, or share that includes hashtag Roar for Change between May 3rd and May 25th, the charity will donate $1 to support UNICEF, an initiative fighting to end global malnutrition and save the lives of children all over the world. Well, guys, we did it. So raise a glass of blue milk or Carillion whiskey. You all roared your way to $1 million. And what better way to enjoy Star Wars than doing some good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget this rundown is brought to you by our store on tpublic.com/user/resistance broadcast, with tons of great designs that not only feature my supreme leader, but everyone's fave besties Han and Chewie. So head to your solo screening in style and support our show. Our next story, get ready, more books incoming. The official Star Wars website announced a brand new book series coming out in October. Now, while it's aimed at readers age 8 to 12, Star Wars readers of all ages will no doubt jump at the opportunity to hop in the cockpit of the most famous ship in the galaxy in Flight of the Falcon. The series from Lucasfilm Publishing will connect different eras of Star Wars storytelling through the many adventures aboard the beloved ship. The series will also introduce fans to the world of Batuu, the planet that patrons will get the opportunity to visit when Disney World's Star Wars Galaxy's Edge theme park opens in 2019. Don't worry, we'll keep you updated on these upcoming titles as we find out more. For the complete articles on these stories, as well as the latest news, reviews, editorials, and information, head over to our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com. That's it for this week's rundown, so let's check in to see what questions you've got for us in Ask the Resistance. Chewie, get us out of here.
All right, Lacey, it's time for Ask the Resistance. Now, we put out a tweet that says, hey, if you've got any questions for us, all you need to do is send them our way, either in this section right here, or just tweet it to your regular, followers, and just make sure to include the term or the hashtag Ask the Resistance so that we're able to see it. We got a couple good ones this week. I'm going to start it off. Our first one is coming from a regular, Grandmaster Galen Merrick. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give this one to you. This one, he specifically says this one is for Lacey Gillerin. So, well, geez, I'll just give this one to you. Go for it, Lacey.
I love G-Master, and he asks, this one's for Lacey Gillerin. If you got a chance to steal something off a Star Wars set belonging to Kylo Ren, what would it be?
He doesn't want to know what I would steal.
Hashtag Kai Lacey. Love it. Let's get that going. So first of all, I wouldn't steal anything. I'd like to think I wouldn't, but given the opportunity, maybe. So, it's funny. My first initial gut reaction would be like his lightsaber.
So working on AwesomeCon, we had a Star Wars display. And one of the really cool things behind the scene type tidbits is I got to help kind of set the stuff up. And by set it up, I got to stand there while they set it up. But one of the things they set up was Kylo Ren from The Last Jedi. And part of his costume is that huge cape that he wears, which actually just sits on his shoulders. It doesn't really clip to anything, which is like the coolest thing ever. Because you're like, oh, that must clip on. And no, it's just very heavy. It took every part of me not to smell it. But I'd probably steal that because it's huge and it's like 3 times the size of me and I could just like wrap myself up. And then I'd feel like super badass in it. Like I could be like demanding things from people, like go through drive-thru and be like, now I need my whatever. I feel like that's really cool.
I actually agree with you. I think the most obvious things would be the lightsaber or maybe the helmet or something like that. And I was trying to think of something non-obvious, and I actually came up with the exact same thing. I think that cape would be really awesome because you'd walk into a room and people would be like, what is that? And you're like, it is the cape of Kylo Ren.
I know, but those high-waisted pants, though, I guess that was like another
Yeah, but you're cool if you walk in with Kylo Ren's cape. You are not cool if you just walk in with his high-waisted pants.
Depends. Do I have a shirt on or not? Because some people
I mean, if you do have it, you might want to put on a cowl, but...
G-Master, that was a great question. Can you just ask that every week and every week?
Yeah, and make sure to always tag her questions with Kai Lacey.
Kai Lacey. That's for everybody. I only answer
All right, I'm going to give
Lacey.
the next one.
I'm going to change my Twitter handle to Kai Lacey.
So the next question we got was from William Bentz, and that's at Bentz_Billy. He said, in Empire Strikes Back, Han realizes he is in a giant asteroid slug. Do you think that maybe the tentacle creature we see in the Solo trailer is one of these slugs? They seem to be in some kind of asteroid field, and it would make sense how he knows how about them later. I don't know. To be honest with you, I think I always kind of took it that the asteroid creature was a little bit more like a sperm whale, like a giant, I don't know, like a one-piece thing. But the thing we see in the Solo trailer has all these tentacles and stuff. Now, to be fair, we didn't ever see the bottom of that monster, and I'm sure there's a Star Wars fan going like, well, that's the something. Like, I didn't bother to look up the name of that giant asteroid hand puppet, but I will say I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say no, because I think when it comes to creatures in general in Star Wars, they that's not something you like to see repeated. They generally like to expand and say, well, here's another one. Well, here's another one, because I think Neil Scanlon is one of those guys who did he actually work on Solo? He worked on Solo, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think he's one of those guys that just likes to go, what could I imagine for this movie? Instead of what could we bring back from classic movies that would be really cool to see in this again.
Yeah, we saw that in the behind the scenes for Last Jedi, where they tried to cut his budget and he was like, no.
Yeah. That was in the Director and the Jedi, I think. Is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my answer to that, and I take it Lacey agrees with that. What's the next on the list, Lacey?
Yeah, so our next question comes from Kylo10 at Fulcrum Andor. Hashtag Ask the Resistance. Over or under 50% that Lumpy is in Solo? James, I'm going to let you answer this one first, because I'm interested what your answer is.
Lumpy's in Solo.
You think that's Lumpy?
I think that...
The headbutt?
I think the headbutt is Lumpy. That is the I have one reason why I believe that's the case, and I wouldn't have thought this if that wasn't the case. But when Jonas when that trailer first came out, Jonas put out a tweet or an Instagram or something like that, and he put hashtag did you see hashtag Lil Baka, and from that point on, everybody's been running with it's Mala, his wife, because it seems like an affectionate thing, but to me, you could very easily say that that's an affectionate father-son, like that's how Wookiees shake hands or say goodbye or hug or something like that. It doesn't have to be a romantic thing. It can just be an affectionate, like, father-to-son thing. He said Lil Baka, and if I see a Lil Baka, I don't assume that means his wife. I assume that means his son. So... Yeah,
if any, romantic interest to me ever called me Lil something, I'd be like,
Yeah, exactly. Like, I definitely don't call my wife like Little Baney or Little James, you know what I mean? But I could very well see calling my son as like a joke or a reference to him, like, oh, that's little James, yeah, that's my son, kind of a thing. So that's why I'm basing it on. What do you think?
Just looking at it, it doesn't seem romantic to me. The forehead touch, it's one of those things that, and I think in Star Wars they do it too, like, it's a very sign of friendship. I mean, you have Rey kissing Finn on the head. I'm about to enrage a bunch of people online. I'm so sorry, Finn Rey people. She says, goodbye, friend, and kisses him on the forehead. So, to me, the forehead territory in general is a very friendly, caring, loving thing, but not in a romantic interest. I don't think so.
I gotcha.
Unless they've made out and then they're resting foreheads next to each other, which I don't think they're doing in that clip. So I would agree. Lumpy is definitely in Solo.
All right. So that's over 50% for both of us. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say 90 just to give it a number. What do you say?
I'm going to go 91%. Price is Right style.
Whoa. All right. What's the next question, Lacey?
The next question is from Jordan Delgadillo at Delgadillo Art. It's probably Dillo, and I just made it like super silly.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
At Delgadillo. I'm going to say Dio, like it's Spanish. Delgadillo Art. He says, hey guys, do you ever think we'll learn more about the prophecy of the Chosen One? Or do you think its origin ever should be explained? Hashtag Ask the Resistance. You're not going to like my answer, James, but I think the Chosen One's Kylo.
Oh, yeah. I don't like your answer.
And I think his Rey is his counterpart. James?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to let you keep going with that, but that's your answer is you think that it already has been explained. Well, here's the thing is, though,
I don't know if it's been explained, but I honestly think they're going to go into that in the next one.
I don't. Like, not at all. But what I will say, because I think the question is actually aimed more at, like, do you ever think they'll explain the prophecy as, like, giving it a definitive answer or maybe giving us a little bit of background onto where maybe the prophecy came from in the first place.
Maybe in an older show, like in the TV series or in one of the other movie series that they haven't discussed yet. Like, I can see it going back that far to explain it.
Yeah, I could see them coming up with maybe where that prophecy came from or something like that. I think that's a very comic thing to do. I feel like they would show Luke and he'd be like, well, this is where the original prophecy came from. It's these statues or something, you know what I mean? These people who once lived here. I have been a proponent of the theory for a long time that Anakin is the chosen one and that Luke, there's an argument to be made that Luke would be the chosen one too, but I believe that Rebels made it clear that Luke was the key to destroying the Sith. So he was the thing that they needed to actually destroy the Sith because you need Luke Skywalker to cause Anakin to kill the thing. So I think Anakin is in fact the chosen one because Clone Wars set that out. You know what I mean? Hey, you're the Force has chosen you. You're supposed to be the person. You're the one who has brought balance to the Force and will continue to bring balance to the Force in the future. He is the prophecy. He is the result. As far as Luke goes, they clarified that he was the one to destroy the Sith. So I think that prophecy has been fulfilled. Although I do think that, you know, the sequel trilogy is definitely kind of giving you this like, we'll still kind of keep that story going along because like what if it wasn't, and maybe there's these other people that, but I think it's already been fulfilled. Anakin was
so another interesting thought, which I've kind of thought about this recently. Growing up outside of Star Wars, I'm a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. I grew up loving that show. And the whole prophecy of the Slayer is that there's someone that's the chosen one, and when she dies, then someone replaces her as the chosen one. I can't help but think that, like, I like that theory, too. Like, that someone could be the chosen one, and then they die, and then it passes on to someone else, and then that person's born out of the Force to then replace that person, and then it keeps going until it rights itself. Yeah. I really like that idea, too, and just so our listeners know, I was kidding about Kylo Ren. Just joking.
I don't know.
I want to see what James' reaction would be.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think that I like the idea that Anakin or Luke are the chosen ones. But I don't think it's Luke now that we had Last Jedi. I don't think it can be.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, it's still possible it's up there. I mean, fans have continued to say that they believe that Anakin was a false chosen one, and that Obi-Wan thoroughly believes that Luke is the chosen one because Anakin failed. And when he ultimately does bring balance to the Force by, convincing Darth Vader to do it for him, he is the chosen one, and that's the prophecy being fulfilled. I've heard it a bunch of different ways.
But then Yoda's like, there's another, which people then take into like, oh, does that mean there's another person?
Yeah,
could it be Rey?
That boy is our last hope. No, there's another. I don't think that necessarily ties into that boy is our last hope to fulfill the prophecy. It's more like that, I don't know, is just the last hope for the galaxy to help us destroy the Empire is how I always kind of took it. But like Star Wars is, we could take it a million different ways and we could have hours and hours of discussions. But I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that we have thoroughly answered the question from Jordan there, and we're going to wrap up this week's Ask the Resistance. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to everyone for sending in your questions. We really appreciate it. If you want your question to be on the show and you want me to give you a really awesome answer, you can tweet at us with hashtag #AskTheResistance. We answer anything and everything, so feel free. And I'm going to let James finish up this episode.
Yep. If you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channels on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Instagram. Give us all of the thumbs up and all of the likes, as well as 5-star reviews on iTunes, as well as as well as 5 stars and a review on iTunes. It only takes a minute, but it will make all the difference to the future of this podcast if you do. Also, head over to tpublic.com/user/resistance broadcast to check out all of our shirts and other merchandise. We try to do an equal amount of Resistance broadcast merch, as well as general Star Wars merch. So whether or not you actually want to rep the logo, there will be something there for you. So grab yourself a t-shirt, a hoodie, a baseball tee, a coffee mug, laptop case, onesie for your 3-month-old. It's all there. Solo, Chewbacca, and the bad boys for life. As always, be sure to head over to our website, StarWarsNewsNet.com, for all of the latest in news and information in the world of Star Wars. Lacey, where can people find you online?
People can find me as usual on Twitter at Lacey Gillerin. I am currently still writing my buddy cop fanfic about Ron Howard and George Lucas.
Oh, yeah.
So it's coming along.
Yep.
Stay tuned.
That's greenlit by Lucasfilm, right?
Oh, it's totally canon. Pablo agrees.
That's the 2020 standalone.
Yes. It's right behind, in pre-production, right behind Old Republic. It's like one of those things. But yeah, I'm really excited for Solo, and I'm excited for our Solo Challenge.
Yep, that's coming up. We're going to talk a little bit more about that next week. As for me, I'm James Bainey. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks. And if you guys are on Twitter, make sure to follow us there, the whole podcast, at RBATSWNN. Plus, make sure to follow our regular host, John Hoey, there at Johnny Hoey. Send us your love.
Don't follow him.
What?
Don't follow him.
Don't follow him. Send us your love. Let us know how we did this week without John, and participate in our discussions. I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me, but may the Force be with you. We'll see you on Thursday.